Okay, welcome and good morning. My name is Georg Gartner. I'm professor at the Vienna University of Technology, and it is really my sincere pleasure to be able to deliver a presentation at the Mobile Tartu Conference 2020. And I would like to start with expressing my thanks to I think the Mobile Tartu Conference has a particular record, a particular quality level. It has reached that especially through Professor Rein Ahas's work. And it's really good to see that it's continuing and it is ongoing. I would like to mention also at the beginning of this presentation at this conference that there's just recently a global initiative ongoing to look into the 5 to 10 year vision on the role and developments of the geospatial information domains in general and what impact that might have on our society. And location-based services are actually prominently named there as one of the key drivers in respect to making the ever-growing amount of data available and bringing them actually down to applications, to services, and to use to both machines and humans. And so in my presentation, I really would like to give that kind of big picture on what I call the evolution of location-based services. And I'm arguing that there's one particular aspect which I would like to focus on eventually is that there is one more or less missing link which hasn't been addressed that much so far, which is combining location-based services and spatial data infrastructures through the semantic web. So that's one of the things which I think will be a key development. And it's interesting to see that at the United Nations level and at other global players, that is being picked up as well. So when looking at the evolution of location-based services, I think what we can say is that how far have we come actually? How far have we gone with the developments of those of us which work in the LBS arena and area? And basically what we can say is that the development of location-based services really was very heavily driven by a particular vision, by the vision that was triggered more or less by technology. The technology which made it possible that we allow us a particular vision was obviously that we have local positioning possibilities, that we have devices which are mobile, and that we have an infrastructure which allows information and communication exchange. But the vision being developed out of this is then obviously that what we want to achieve or aiming for when developing location-based services is that information really becomes available anytime and anywhere, that it becomes ubiquitous available. Now, we can try to answer that vision, all of us, in a sense, and we can say, well, ticked off. It's possible. We have achieved that in a sense. It's there already. That vision, which has developed out of the location-based service possibilities and infrastructures, has also included the idea that that's not only that are getting access to information, but that information becomes tailored in respect to the user, those which want to, which demanding information. And what does that mean? Tailored to the user? Well, tailored to the particular context of a user and the need of the user. And what context means is, I think we have gone in that direction, but we haven't gone far enough in that direction. We need to differentiate that better. When we're thinking about other information exchange possibilities, like through humans, if I understand the human as a system and we exchange information between humans, the context plays actually a key role. So now in LBS, that is obviously part of the vision. We've gone that direction with the context, but it's not far enough, because what we see is, okay, I can see the language or the weather conditions as context parameters, but there are so much more which might eventually be on board in the future. I also think that part of the vision was that the location then becomes a key selector for which and how information is provided. That is obviously the key role of having a service which includes something like the location, that I'm using that as a selector. And of course, we can say, yes, we have reached that. That's possible. We can do that. We can see that. And also the fourth part of the vision, that location-based services are really widespread and of daily use, is obviously true. I doubt that there might be smartphones in our societies which have not at least one LBS on board or included. If you're thinking about entertainment LBSs like Pokemon Go games, or entertainment LBSs like a running app which monitors your outdoor behavior, those type of things are really popular, widespread of daily use. So all those visions have come through very quickly. And the vision includes also the idea that location-based services can contribute to capture and analyze this everything happens somewhere metaphor. We have this idea in the geospatial domain that everything happens somewhere. Obviously, everything is in time and space. Now, to get hold of that, what happens somewhere, including me, myself, my emotions, my environment, my context. Now, how do I capture that? We have all kinds of tools, surveying. We can monitor something by remote sensing. We can count something. But obviously, location-based services are a really very powerful tool to also contribute to capturing information about whatever object or entity might be at a particular place in space. And capturing this and analyzing this is one of the key aspects, obviously, which the Estonian Tartu group is famous for and has contributed to make that vision come true already. And the final part of that vision had included also the idea that, yes, if we wouldn't have that location-based services on board and we users wouldn't be able to use them, we would miss something. There would be a gap, so to say. I wouldn't go as far as saying, well, we all would feel spatially blind, but in a sense, location-based services have become so immersive, so ubiquitous in our life that there would be a gap, there would be a missing link if all of a sudden those will not exist anymore. So what I'm arguing is that we have come a long way by this general aim of producing services automatically, formally described in real time, more or less, with ubiquitous means, and having services which are really popular, fulfilling basically those visions which I've just talked about. And that was really underpinned by the idea that sensors, telecom infrastructure, devices are available, make that possible. Big data is there and make it possible. That we have an infrastructure and standards, that there are services which allow the development of those services. And there is innovative media and interfaces available which help us to communicate that in a nice and neat way. I'm also thinking that it was underpinned and is underpinned by the idea that we can link data and the semantic web is included. But I would say that we haven't reached the full potential of that yet. And that is something which might be still on our list in the evolving development of further location-based services. And when that was really broken down, that challenges and that visions and that aims into research activities. And when we're looking at the research activities, we can see that there was a lot of activities ongoing and successful results in respect to positioning and fusing basically positioning elements and data coming along with that. I think in integrating a data infrastructure, again, I'm arguing that there is more which could be done to fully deploy the potential of this. I think the research challenges clearly show that there's a lot of research ongoing in adopting to ever new devices, in ever new possibilities on using mobile devices for location-based services. There have been a lot of research ongoing in assistance services, and we see successful applications in that area, as well as the data-driven analysis, which we can see from LBS data. Again, I would like to refer to mobile Tartu and all the fantastic work which will be presented in this conference this year and has been presented in the past. I'm also arguing that there are ongoing research challenges which we really have to put a lot more effort in. And as I said before already, the context modeling part, The personalization part, I think we are still not there yet to say that we fully control and understand what it needs. The intrusiveness of user interfaces, how can we make them as non-intrusive as possible? There is still a way to go. Also, usually we understand our users as single users, but in very many cases, users are not on their own. They are in groups, they are together. Can we support that better? Can we model, capture, inform that better? Can we support actions better? And also, can we link our location-based services to knowledge base and have them being part of a knowledge base and also contributing to a knowledge base? So being part of the semantic web as well. So I'm arguing, yes, location-based services has really been setting up in some years, so to say, into an unbelievable, actually, success story. It's not named eventually LBS everywhere, but you can tell and you can see that it's more or less in everyday's pocket, every person's pocket, and those type of services exist and play a crucial role in terms also for the geo-domain, because everything is spatial in a sense when it comes to LBS. So in order to make that happen, we have developed to become engineers, and we've been successful as engineers. And I think what we have done also to challenge those aims and those visions and to do the research needed to allow that, we have become data scientists. We use the data there, and we have been successful doing so. So I think we have come that far. And in my group in Vienna, we've looked into all those elements as engineers, as data scientists. We looked into the idea of, for instance, indoor navigation services, where we derive an indoor navigation services and LBS directly from a BIM and trying to build automatically indoor navigation services in here, trying to enhance them by applying science which are in the environment itself. So rather, instead of looking into data only, we're trying to make a link between the virtual world and the real world. In the real world, there is a sign, so I'm not ignoring that sign, but I'm including that, linking that into my navigation service, into my LBS, so to say. And being an engineer means that we are trying to cope with new devices and trying to build services on top of those. Being an engineer means also trying to engineer the semantic element of something. So trying to model also semantic elements, dimensions, and derive those into services which are location-based. As well as what we've done in Vienna, especially, was looking at what I call the pragmatic dimension. So not only looking at geometry and attributes, but also on reactions, on relations, basically, which users might have with the environment, location-based and also time-based. So something which we call the emotional map, the emotional mapping part. So location-based service, which allows us to capture, analyze, monitor, and represent, basically, subjective relations to space in situ, so to say. So that was another part of that, what I call engineering or data scientist approach, to make that LBS domain working in a way I've just tried to figure it out. Now, what I'm thinking, what is the direction which we are going to eventually more, is that we need to incorporate better the understanding of the semantic web and of linked data. So really trying to define relations as well. So not only seeing all elements which location-based services are referring to, my position, the environment around me, and so on, as singular things, but also their relations to other information, which might have a relation to it. So the idea of the semantic web, to deploy that into the world of LBS, that's the idea. And we have done a first project in that direction with Belgian colleagues, where we try to find out, okay, if you are a tourist from Belgium in Vienna, and you want to find out about the Belgian routes in Vienna, can I build a location-based service which shows you the Belgian routes in Vienna? So can we simply harvest the semantic web about the attribute Belgium, something, and maybe there's a plague, maybe there was an artist in Vienna once at a particular hotel, maybe there was whatever, Belgian route or relation, and we pinpoint it down on a location and make a semantic LBS out of that. So that's the idea, which we try to build in that respect. And really that goes in that direction to understand actually an LBS as a powerful tool and possibility, opportunity to go into this direction to actually close the gap between the semantic web, the geodata, the rich geodata in general, and actually locations and in situ place and me as a user, so to say. To link that, I think what we need to do is to define rather processes. So think about the idea you need to guide somebody into a railway station and to find the platform he need to catch his train. So rather to trying to describe the environment only, so to say, and give you an idea on where to turn right and left and so on, what if we describe all processes ongoing in that building? So all the trains running is one process. The maintenance of the elevators is one process. The opening hours of the stores is one process. Your aim, your ticket, so to say, is one process. Now linking all those processes will then allow actually a really smart navigation service or location-based services, supporting basically in real time what really is needed and related, so to say, to each other. So that's more or less the idea of a semantic understanding of the environment, that we are defining processes and we are defining actually the world by making annotations to the world, annotations to every single entity which might exist, and relation, and link those. That would allow us to interconnect the physical world and the virtual world, the information technology world, by simultaneously generating, harvesting, and presenting data. And then that can be presented to either humans or even machines. So the idea of annotating the world and seeing all of these annotations basically as entities which are on a meta level relatable is the idea of a semantic fundament of LBS, so to say. And I really think that's a very powerful possibility to enhance our services in future further. So what I'm arguing is, yes, where we had to, it will not go away. There will be more sensors. There will be more sensing. Everything will be monitored. Everything what happens somewhere will be monitored. It will produce data, and there will be more and more of those. It will need to have us looking better and better into tools to deal with that data, to find the relevant data out of it, to deal with things like artificial intelligence and machine learning if we want to be successful with developing location-based services further, of course. And I'm arguing where we head to is that sensors and that ever-growing amount of data lead to the need to link that data better. It leads basically to the idea of semantics, to really marry the semantic web, the semantic idea through linked data with LBS is the biggest potential, which from my perspective hasn't been fully deployed yet. I'm also thinking that LBS is very much affected, and it will be affected further through all these new involving new interfaces coming across, which might be embedded and getting closer and closer to us in a sense, to us humans. And there's also the idea of having an annotated world and having a possibility to capture, analyze, monitor, but also represent information nearly real time, ubiquitously. We can actually start to think about anticipating services. Anticipating services, which are obviously needed when we're talking about autonomous cars, autonomous machines, obviously, but that can be also used by services which are meant for human users then at the end. So machines might play a role, obviously, as a source, as a platform, but also as a user of location-based services in the future. And we could go as far as saying there might be brain-computer interfaces between human users and the data, and that immersiveness might be something which will come across and influencing what we are up for, what we are doing. When we looking at the big picture, where do we head to? Well, at the end of the day, we might end up with this real-time, high-resolution, all-knowingly linked learning. I don't know how to call it, system, twin, whatever. But at the end of the day, this is what we're kind of contributing when we're looking at the big picture. When you bring all the big puzzle pieces together, That's eventually the conjunction of it, the realm in the direction we might want to go to. What I'm thinking, what we need to ask then is, well, if that is in place, what's next? What are the benefits actually for us, the individuals, for the society? What is actually the impact of that for us, for the society? I argue, in general terms, LBS is a scientific discipline. Science seeks for gaining knowledge, and knowledge should empower humans. I argue location-based services can contribute to empower humans spatially, but we should carefully think about what are eventually benefits and impacts of that. And that brings me really to Professor Rein Ahas, which was one of that persons far beyond actually LBS and the University of Tartu, one of the persons in our domain and beyond, which understood actually not only the details and the potentials and the questions and the challenges which we can do as technologists, as engineers, as scientists, but also about the impacts and the benefits. And I really would like to devote my praise and my presentation to Professor Rein Ahas, which I really miss. And with this, I would like to thank you for your attention. Thank you very much.
So, Georg, thanks first of all for, I think, bringing us up to date where we are in terms of location-based services, and especially this idea of the semantic services. Okay,
Okay, I'm not sure if everybody can hear me properly. I've read the question about if we're getting geographically or spatially blind by using location-based services. And obviously that's a big threat, and that is very much true in a sense that we have research which demonstrates that, especially with car navigation services. But we also see that there are a number of developments ongoing. I would like to mention, for instance, the University of Zurich, where research is done and applications are built which on purpose try to make navigation services being connected to the real world, so that we make sure that we are not determined by a service only as a human user, but we are enabled or empowered by the service. And that means that we are able to recognize, but eventually also learn the environment. So the one project I've referred to with the sign, including signs in a navigation service, is exactly in that direction, so that we are rather understand human users, not as kind of robots following our instructions, but rather the other way around, that those should be enabled. And I think that's one of the key developments which we should really consider in future developments as well.
Okay, thank you. I'm just having a quick look whether there are other questions that have popped up in the other room. It appears not, but maybe I have a question that obviously is affecting all of us, and that is the coronavirus. So it's maybe a bit of a giveaway question, let's say, and in what sense that location-based services, I know that there is quite a lot of discussion here, for instance, in Belgium, having a team of people that really want to trace where you have been and with whom you have been in contact, and also the issue of privacy. So where do you see like location-based services being a possible tool for helping us to have like contact tracing and also maybe having still taking care of our privacy?
Yeah, I think it's a very good question, and we see, to my understanding, it's actually a very strong driver and trigger to exactly touch upon those questions. With your colleague, Nico van der Weege from Ghent University, we're currently working on the idea on looking at that tracing apps and how well the Bluetooth actually distance measurement idea, which is behind it, how reliable is that actually? I mean, the idea of the tracing apps is really that we can trust on that, so to say. Is that really possible through something like Bluetooth? So it's a trigger to really looking better and in more detail on technical questions, as well as on questions going beyond the engineering part. And as you say, the privacy element is an interesting element of that. In my country, and I've also heard in Germany and other countries, those tracing apps are quite popular and accepted by the population. And it's, from my perspective, hard to see which impact that might have in the general attention of the population on such topics and questions related to location-based services. I think it might change that actually. If it turns out to be a successful tool, if by using an LBS like a tracing app, we can avoid in a particular country a lockdown of a whole country, people will start to think, oh, that's actually a very useful technology. Location-based services actually are very beneficial for my life because I don't need to go into lockdown again, because it has helped to differentiate that better. So I'm very curious about that, but also optimistic. I think it's a big driver actually for LBS. Thanks for the question, Frank. Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you. Again, have a quick look at whether there are additional questions being asked. Yeah, there is one. What is the ethical implication of linking everything?
That's a good question. Yes. Well, of course. I think what we, and that's why I try to brought that up. I think what we need to do is we need to understand that what we usually do, we are engineers and data scientists, but it has an impact. And we as the developers of things, we as the technicians, we as those with dealing with the data, we can't set the rules on what should be allowed and where is the borders. And I think we need to feed the negotiations which are needed for that. And the negotiations which are needed for that should be on a society level. So from my perspective, LBS is really a key area which demonstrates that we have to negotiate on a society level what we humans accept, basically. And this is, I think, one of the consequences of our topic, of the topic of this conference, that we allow those discussions as well. And we feed those discussions, and that we are proactive in those discussions. I personally think it's very good to see that, for instance, at the European Union level, that has been really taken on board. So there is negotiations ongoing. So what should be rules of privacy in future? And that needs to be negotiated, and I think it's a good development.
Okay, I see that there are a couple more questions, but I'm also seeing that we're already running a bit out of time. But maybe one final and a quick answer is, you said a lot about data. And my question is, well, how could you deal with avoiding that fake data gets reproduced and into more fake data, and that you actually are steering your system based on not the real data, but let's say data that is infected by maybe some commercial aspects or people who have other issues related to the location-based services? It's a bit linked to the fourth question in the other room. So maybe if you could quickly reflect on that, Georg.
Yes, I think that's it's a very crucial question, and it's a question of reliability and data quality, and we need to find much better tools and instruments to describe those so that we can trust into it. So I think it's one of the open questions in that research challenges which I presented. And I agree with you. It's not enough to have data. We need to describe them better, so to say, on a meter level. And that's one thing which obviously through LBS has a very good direct impact, because if I'm using data location based and it doesn't work, I can't rely on, I have an immediate impact, so to say. So that's on our list. I agree, Frank.
Okay, well, I think we have to end it here. And a big thank you for being with us from Vienna. So, And also congratulations with being the first recipient of the Rhein AHAS lecture. So I hope that next time when we have Mobile Tartu and we are not virtually but physically seeing one another, we could give you the award that is linked to it. And again, a big thank you for joining us, and hope you can stay with us for, let's say, this day, or at least at some moments.
I will. Thank you, Frank. And I have to say, it's a real honor and pleasure to be able to give that keynote with the name of Rhein AHAS being attached to it. And as I said, I really miss him as a scientist and as a friend. And it's good to see that it's ongoing with this. Thank you, Frank.